So one of my favorite parts of these events is when we get new companies and new people to come speak, especially when they've got new ideas, some ideas that maybe you haven't heard before. And you might hear a couple of those ideas that are new ways of thinking about the way we use data in our businesses from some new companies who aren't always here with us. So we have one more session left, and then we're going to get a quick update from CMLS before we go to lunch. So this one will open some minds up, I think, for you. So our next session is One API for Agents, Brokers, MLSs, Vendors, and Data Shares. Come on up.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jose Emerson, and I'm here from San Diego MLS to talk to you about a very important topic, which is related to the future of real estate data. And as you know, under the current climate, the industry is under threat. And through this threat, we need to figure out better ways and mechanisms to move forward. And I think Sam alluded to this before, that we need to look forward in transition to how we do business. And we feel that through our partnership with Realtina, we've found a solution where they can save us from this threat. And this is through the implementation of a One API designed for agents, brokers, vendors, MLSs, and data share partners. And we at SDMLS strongly advocate for this type of technology and this type of API to enable us to better measure and also monetize the data that's being consumed. So let's move on and talk about the types of MLS data. So we're talking about property data, transactional data, and also behavioral data, which is derived from consumers interacting with property information. And the real question that we should be asking is, what must the MLS do to maximize the value of MLS data? And this is where the One API and metered billing concept comes into play. And to explain more about how we can approach this and how Realtina can accomplish or help us accomplish the mission of this, we need to first understand the value of the MLS, which is to collect the data, right? And this happens through data input, mandatory submission, and clear cooperation rule. And as you know, there's this controversy about clear cooperation, and if this goes away, what would we do, right? How would we collect this data? It would get more difficult to collect this data and also more expensive to get this data. So we also, part of our missions is to also copyright data by protecting it. And we do this through license agreements, and we do this on behalf of subscribers and participants. We also do curation and control of this data, which is the value of the MLS. And we provide accuracy of the data, and we try to prevent dilution to add value to the MLS. We also distribute it through RESO and API models, of course, and we monetize it. Now, we don't monetize it to the best of the extent, and this is where partnering with Realtina and creating a One API and metered billing system can allow us to better do so. Now, discussing the methods of monetizing data, we at SDMLS fall under these two categories between equal and fair. So equal is where we charge the same amount regardless of data consumption, and fair, of course, is that we charge proportionally based on the data consumed. And in the future environment, we hope that metering this data will allow us to charge based on real-time consumption. And that takes us to the pricing models, and also in the current environment, how vendors like portals and CMAs and CRMs do not always pay for the value received for this data. And soon, capital markets will also want access to this data, and we need to be prepared for this. We need to be able to also charge fairly and appropriate for the data that they consume. And in the tomorrow environment, we feel that the pricing model could be based on consumption. And now, how could this be achieved? This can be achieved through metering the data, which is the concept of a fair and non-discriminatory usage-based billing system that under SDMLS's premise states that business models that rely on MLS data should be charged based upon the data they consume, and that content providers, agents and brokers, should be paid for the content that they create. And metering the data makes both of this possible. So I'll leave you with a quote from Saul Klein, who is the CEO of SDMLS, where he states that digitization means that tomorrow won't look like yesterday. So the industry is evolving, and we need to adapt to that change. So,
do you want to go to the next slide?
yeah.
So this is going to be the joke of the day, and Saul loves this. Only pay for what you need, and we are moving to only pay for what you use. Good morning, everyone. My name is Giselle Abadi. I'm CTO and co-founder of Realtina. And further expanding on what Jose just mentioned, I want to ask you this question that, in your opinion, how we can determine the value of the MLS data. So what are the metrics? And before I go into the details, I want to tell you a story I heard from Saul Klein, who is a pioneer in MLS data syndication. Back when he established Point 2, he says that at the time we knew that the MLS data is valuable, but we didn't have any data and any metrics to be able to establish that value. And also we didn't have any technologies to be able to measure the consumption and how to charge for it. And so we thought that, okay, let's provide people with the feed and let them use the data, let them create business models around this data, let them generate revenue from this, and in a few years' time, we will have enough knowledge and information and data to be able to determine the value of the data. And I'm very happy to say that today is the day. We have a lot of data. We are able to measure the value that each MLS actually generates towards data consumers. And also we have the technology to be able to measure the consumption and to basically charge for it. So we came up with the idea of cost per million visits that should be calculated for each MLS market differently. And CPM is not a new concept. It's widely accepted in other industries, especially in advertising industry. So why not? Because real estate data is also kind of advertising, so why not use the same concept for MLS data evaluation? So here are some metrics, basically, that I'm not going to go through. They're pretty self-explanatory. But this model is new, and we would love to hear your thoughts after the session, what other metrics can be used to establish value for the MLS data. And the next question is how to measure the usage. Well, we use two methods for measuring the usage. The first method is for when the data is replicated, which is, I assume, the majority of cases today in the industry. So we use powerful web traffic analytic tools to be able to estimate the consumption and to estimate the value that the MLS data brings to each data consumer. And the second method is can be used when RESO web API on the fly, which I'm going to explain later, can generate, which is when the data consumers do not replicate the data and they rely on API directly for showing the listing information on their portals. So this is method number 2. And just before I go to RESO web API on the fly, I just want to show you that this is not just a concept. We are developing a dashboard for San Diego MLS, and these are just sample information of the domain names and the traffic, the monthly traffic that is either calculated through estimation or the real consumption, and the actually associated cost with each data access request. And now I go to MLS router, it's our implementation of RESO Web API on the fly. And what I mean by that is that this API serves, it's a RESO Web API compliant model, and it serves the data in milliseconds based on query and response. And remember when Jose just mentioned that one of the roles of MLSs is to protect the data and prevent dilution. This is one way to have, we cannot impose this on everyone, of course, but this is an additional option to protect the data, but the API should be fast enough and also be able to handle complex queries so that actually the consumers, they don't need to replicate the data. And this has another benefit for the data consumers, especially smaller brokerages and agents, that they can use this API and it's very cost effective for them because they don't need to maintain powerful servers and databases just for their website, just in order to show the MLS data. And there is an integrated billing system to that. And the most important part of it is it's based on RCP 35, single feed proposal. A big shout out to RESO and Eric Finlay from Bridge and Joshua Darnell from RESO that together, and there are a bunch of other people that worked on this proposal, and we implemented it. And the result is that agents and brokers that work with several MLSs, they can get aggregated feed of all of these MLSs, regardless of their MLS-specific policies. It means that if they have VOW access to San Diego MLS and IDX access to, let's say, San Francisco MLS, they can get all of this data and with dynamic payload on the same API. And of course, we achieved all of that building on AWS platform, 100%. So please take a photo of this slide. These are 3 examples of the headless websites that we did for our clients. And you will see that, you will be amazed at the speed and the SEO value that this API, RESO Web API on the fly, provides for them and lifts a lot of technical work and pressure from them to maintain the website. Thank you. I pass on now to Vincent from AWS.
Thanks, Giselle. Hello, everybody. My name is Vincent Payette. Let's see here. I'm based out of Seattle, and I'm joined here by Tanvi Hungut, who's based out of Dallas. Hey, Tanvi. So I'm here on behalf of AWS. AWS is the tech infrastructure company that powers a lot of the technology that you're gonna hear over the next couple of days, including Realtina. So earlier this year, we've reimagined our go-to-market strategy at AWS to be more industry-focused rather than tech-focused. So that means that we're now sort of going to be speaking more the industry language rather than just being your tech provider. So a lot of our customers are here, and we look forward to working with you. Like you're probably wondering now, sort of, why there's this other famous bald guy on the screen. Any of you have heard of the API mandate by Jeff Bezos? It's kind of new for a lot of some people have said here. So the API mandate was issued by Jeff Bezos way back in 2002, and it's a 6-point memo, and I picked up a few of the interesting parts here. So point number 1 says all teams will henceforth expose their data and functionality through service interfaces. so which we would call API today. So point number 2 is no other forms of communications allowed. So that was to prevent backdoor communication and other ways to communicate with data. And the point number 3 was every service interfaces must be externalizable, and that's an important point for what comes later. I didn't put it on the slide here, but the 4th point that he said, or the 6th in the list, was anyone not doing this will be fired. Jeff was an interesting leader in its time at AWS. So to my knowledge, this is our first time presenting at RESO. I'm really looking forward to working with all of you to transform the digital experience the digital customer experiences in the real estate industry. So what came, sort of from externalizing all those service interfaces or all those API, gave birth to, what we now call Amazon Web Services or AWS, and it was sort of founded in 2006. One of the first services that we externalized for that's germane to people here is Amazon API Gateway. So API Gateway, and I suspect a lot of Realtina's technology is built on API Gateway. So API Gateway is a fully managed serverless service that makes it easy for developers and to create, publish, and maintain sort of APIs at scale. And that's really the key point here with anything that you build on top of AWS, is that's built at Amazon.com scale. So all our services that we build, we use them internally to build our own services. And our services, as you can imagine, operate at a scale that's unimaginable. Multiple tens of thousands of concurrent requests per second. So that if your service becomes wildly successful, you'll have the Amazon backing in terms of scalability. So one of the first things, if you work with us or you work with an AWS partner, one of the first things we typically do is we create what we call an architectural diagram of your application. I'm not going to go into all the details of this architectural diagram, but suffice to say, it's what sort of becomes the blueprint of your application, and it's stitching together all those different services. Those managed services like API Gateway that's in the central of this, to create your differentiated digital experience. You can use API Gateway to connect, to create that external entry point into your application from the mobile client, the website, and so on. And then the middle layer is the API Gateway that we've talked about just a minute ago, and then the back end, it would be your Lambda functions, sort of your EC2 services, and so on and so forth. So really in 2024, it wouldn't be a tech presentation without talking about, you probably already guessed what I'm going to be talking about, generative AI, right? So every presentation I do these days has a section on generative AI. So at AWS, we expose an API that allows you to create generative AI base or leverage generative AI in your applications called Bedrock. And that API really sort of democratizes access to all those large language models that you're familiar with. What I wanted to highlight, and this is the last slide here, I'm just on time, but is some of the use cases for real estate, since we're now verticalized into this industry, that we've helped our customers build. An interesting one is virtual staging. I don't know if you've seen that, but you can create, from a picture, you can virtually stage it using generative AI. There's even automated listing creation, semantic search, document understanding, and so on. So some of those are some of the generative AI experiences we've helped our customers build. And I look forward to, again, connect with all of you and help you build some of those generative AI experiences.
Thank you.